The story for Doctor Who, Destiny of the Daleks is when the Doctor and the recently regenerated Romana arrive on a radioactive planet, the Time Lord has the strangest feeling that he has been there before. Exploring the ruins of an old city, it is not long before they discover the disturbing truth. The TARDIS has materialized on Skaro, original home to the evil Daleks. But who are the mysterious Movelians, and what terrible treasure are the Daleks seeking? The answer lies deep beneath the city. I have to admit, I was actually surprised by this. There was just a lot of surprising things in general with it. Just for one thing, budget. I mean, I've said this since the 77 season, that since Star Wars came up, they had to basically compete budget-wise and also effects-wise for everything. And sometimes the budget suffered for it. The effects look great, sometimes they were kind of okay or good, but everything else suffered because of it. This season, it seems like they found a proper balance between budget and special effects, and it actually showed. The budget of the sets were great, the costumes were good, even the special effects were really impressive. I have to admit, there's this one scene in the beginning of the first episode where the ship lands onto the ground and digs into the earth. That was actually very impressive model work, blue screen, green screen, and some just a regular special effects, because it had these beams that were actually going down into the surface as well as it landed, as to, like, you know, slow it down. That was all very impressive. I was impressed. I love the shooting locations they did when they did location shooting. I don't know if it was like a quarry or sand dune or something. I don't know exactly where it was, but it was a beautiful location. And I don't know if it was original audio or something they added in post later, but the sound when there's just going on in the background, you kind of hear this kind of like white noise, or just, you know, environment noise. It just kind of gave this eerie feel to it, which kind of helped, you know, make you believe you were on Skaro, because it had this eerie kind of sound and just disturbing to it over time. The story was good. The story is impressive. The story itself kind of has a kind of theme to it of analytical. Actually, I should say analytical thinking to it, because it's about the Daleks looking for their creator. In a sense, it's kind of like humans looking for God, basically, if you want to think of it that way. And they're looking for the creator to find purpose and meaning to their lives, or just, you know, in betterment of themselves. There's so much interpretations and ways to look at it. And also we have the Movelians, who, before the big twist at the last episode, when you first look at the Movelians, when I saw them, I was like, they seem to be very feminine. And even some of the actors were male. They looked very feminine, and even one of them wore lipstick, and I was very impressed by that. I was like, okay, that's interesting. Is it like, are they trying to be, is it a society of aliens that are just more feminine and believe in femininity, or the feminine gods, or something like that, or or is there just, they don't care about gender? Or there's actually many layers to, you could think of that. At one point I was thinking maybe it's a transgender society or something like that, where they don't really make a big deal about their gender or sexual identity or something like that. I was trying to pick at so many things that was giving to, little clues they were giving to me. I was like, there's something here and stuff. And so I couldn't really pinpoint what it was. But when they give the big twist at the end, when they find out they're actually androids or robots, then it's like, oh, so they're genderless. They're just robots. But you could still interpret it in many other different ways, like I pointed out, from transgender to genderless to femininity, and there's so many different ways you can interpret it, and each one is a valid interpretation or analytical detail you could for the Movelians. And the Movelians against the Daleks is an interesting story in of itself, especially when you think about their logic for being there. And that's what it's all about, is a battle of logic. They're at a stalemate with each other. And this is a good a good story about war, a theme about war, and something to really talk about. Where even the Doctor tries to point it out, where they play rock paper scissors. They try to talk about how stalemates happen, how one ups each other, how one will find out what they're gonna go do next and do better, and then you will find out what you did wrong and do better, and one up. So there's just so much going on, and so much wealth of thinking just from any episode of this storyline. And Davros was an interesting surprise. Okay, yes, it's a different actor, but he still kept the spirit of what Davros is. And Davros was even creepy at times, especially when he first appears. He's just in suspended animation. He's just sitting still. And then as the Daleks start to arrive, he starts to reanimate, and he starts twiddling his fingers first. He has these cobwebs on him too. And it's just really creepy. And then the little eye up here goes blue. And then when we come back in the next episode, he wiggles his fingers a little bit more, and he starts speaking. And it was really good. And the makeup was very impressive too, because I'm not too sure how much information they have, or if they were able to look at the original material back then. But the makeup was pretty well done. It very much matched what was in Genesis of the Daleks. And the reasoning for Davros still being alive is actually understandable, and actually, plausible, of how he was able to survive being killed by the Daleks and all this and that, because of his life support system, and have regenerative tissue and organs being suspended animation and all that. It was very logical, and it's very science fiction, yes, and kind of silly, but it works. At least to me it works. But it was it was very cool to see Davros again, and how he plays out, and the fact how the Doctor and him knew about stalemates in war and what one could do to prevent that, but they didn't want to tell either side, which was kind of an interesting thing of how even though one wanted world domination, they didn't really want to make it easy for the other person, but also didn't want to seem invaluable. Because Davros even though he needs the Daleks so he can rule the universe, but he wants the Daleks to need him so that he can help them rule the universe. So it was kind of interesting in that way too, especially with the Doctors when he's helping the Movelians, because the Movelians want him to upgrade their systems and weaponry, and the Doctors are kind of in the same position, because he needs their help to finish his mission, but he needs them to need his help. So it was kind of cool in that. The Daleks themselves were good. The voices were good. It seems like after the fiasco with I think it was the Day of the Daleks, if I remember correctly, from the third Doctor, where the Daleks' voices weren't quite on par as they used to be. I think they learned from that, which is why episodes later with the Daleks, they were bad. They just fixed that. And they did that here too, where the Daleks actually sounded like Daleks. They actually moved like Daleks. And the humor was good too. In fact, Doctor made fun of the Daleks for not being able to climb walls or anything like that, which was funny. Let's see, what else is there to talk about. It's just what would seem like a very simple story, a very simple Dalek story, just has so much to look at, think about. It's like a dirty gem that you found in the ground, and you're just removing the dirt, and you just find these little sparkles in it. You're just like, oh my goodness, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool. And so yeah, it's just for what it is, it could have been a very cheap, very silly Doctor Who story with a lot of good things in it, and just a fun story, like some previous ones have been, where their budget hasn't been that great, or even just silly story. It would have just been fun, like so many other ones have been. Like I mentioned, I like some of the Doctor Who stories just for being fun and entertaining, and that's what this could have been. But it became so much more, and I think it's mainly because of the writing from both Terry Mason, and from what I understand, it suggested that Douglas Adams wrote part of the script too, either in rewrites or main write. I don't know the exact full story yet, but the fact that the writing was very much above par really helps to it a lot. But and what was interesting though is at the end, spoiler alert, they actually captured Davros and put him in frozen cryogenic freeze to stand trial on Earth for all his crimes against the universe. And I thought that was interesting. I'm like, where could this go? I mean, are we going to see the trial in the future? I don't know yet. I haven't seen the future Doctor Who stories yet, but just that was interesting to me. I'm like, I want to see where this goes. It's like Wrath of Khan from Star Trek. It's like when you watch that one episode from the original series and they exile Khan and his people to that planet, and Spock says, well, I wonder years later to see what would happen to that seed you planted here today, Kirk. It's kind of like that. You want to like, oh, I wonder what would happen next after this, and then you see Wrath of Khan, and it's like, oh my God, that's what happened. That's kind of like what happens right here with Davros being frozen. It's like, okay, we set this up. Where is this going to go? Yeah, so I want to see where that happens. But other than that, it was a beautiful story. Romana is the regeneration of Romana is introduced in this one. I almost forgot about this. While I have mentioned in my previous review how much I loved Romana, Romana 2 is just starting out, so I can't really say much for her. But the actress they chose actually does justice to the part. This is a regeneration. Fans refer to this generation of Romana as Romana 2. And with her, with Romana 2, at this point, the relationship between the Doctor and Romana is equality. They are absolutely equal. They've worked together enough. They understand each other. They have a kind of like a language with each other. And it's not a one-upmanship between them anymore. If there's any joking, insults between them, it's kind of like a friendly banter. It's like no real offense is meant towards each other. It's just to, you know, pull each other's chains, basically. And even down to costume is doing that, because Romana 2, when she's first introduced, she's going through these different regenerations to try and find a body perfect for her, because the Doctor doesn't like it for this reason, and she goes to the body that she chooses for the remainder of her term. And he says, fine, that's fine, whatever. And she chooses an outfit that's a feminine version of the Doctor's, because the Doctor wears a long coat with the ridiculously long scarf. She wears a pink coat and pink pants, and she has a ridiculously long white scarf. It's not multicolored, it's just one white scarf. And it's a funny joke to him, kind of parodies him in a way, but in a way it's kind of like a compliment to him as well. And it's just funny on so many levels. All right. So yeah, I'd like to see where this goes with Romana 2. Alrighty then. Overall, I give this story 4 stars out of 5. It is very impressive, worth watching, worth talking about amongst fans and newcomers alike. And I'd love to see where the Romana 2 fares in future stories. Alright, thank you for watching and have a nice day.